To speak of the gods lightly is a mistake that many have committed over the centuries. In the last video, I have mentioned that the archons each have their own importance of the word legacy and knowledge, that the traveler has become the record of all things and the one to bring Tevat's legacy to other places. But I also mentioned Celestia and its strange history of silence. Today, I want to talk about why we shouldn't talk about Celestia, what happens when you do, and why they have such a vow of secrecy even amongst their own deities and their own people. Disclaimer: all of this is speculation and theorizing. The current lore we have of Celestia is hardly substantive, so please do not take this video as absolute. May the celestial gods not harm you or me for consuming this video's knowledge. Thank you. To begin this video, I'd like to state the vast history of celestial censorship. Over the course of centuries, and even millennia, the higher beings that watch over this world have intricately woven a history of silence, secrecy, and surveillance. It is the unspoken rule in Tevat that knowledge is unequivocally power, and those that possess more of it are seen as threats. And this is best seen in the beginning of Celestia's history. According to the Flower of Paradise Lost, otherworldly knowledge is nothing short of a delusion and a mania, and that the Scarlet King is fated to lose in this exchange. Let's break this really long text down into digestible English. First is that she begins with the story of a faraway time of calm and peace, where divine envoys openly spoke to the people. This is a time depicted in the Prayers artifact set. After the defeat of the Bishops and the 7 Dragonaires by the primordial one known as Phanes and their 4 shades, Phanes created humanity. This was a time where the old gods were closest to humanity and sent divine envoys to assist with their prosperity. The divine envoys spoke that humanity will be great and that years will be filled with bountiful harvest. According to the book Before Sun and Moon, humanity's ancestors made a covenant with Phanes. However, slowly, humanity began to question the longevity of their prosperity. When they asked the divine envoys said nothing, thus wedging a rift between humanity and the gods. Humanity was eager to know the secrets of their prosperity and slowly lost their confidence in the envoys. It came to the point that they would send priests crowned with white branches to antediluvian ruins and long-buried altars of sacrifice. The word antediluvian was used in the actual artifact set, which means of or belonging to the time before the biblical flood, or better known as the time before Noah's Ark. In Genshin, there's also the equivalent to the flood, in which there was an entire ice age and fire age, 40 winters entombed the flames, and 40 summers churned the seas. Antediluvian would also mean the time before Phanes and the 4 shades. This means that humanity began looking for information that was beyond celestial jurisdiction. Humanity also schemed to enter the Garden of the Gods, and as a result, the envoys became angry. For to question the heavens' authority was forbidden. So this began the slow damaging of humanity in the heavenly. Then we move on to the next statement. But, in time, invaders descended from beyond the firmament, bringing with them destruction, overturning rivers, and spreading plagues. The invaders here most likely means the divine creature known as the second throne that came before. This creature was formally labeled in the book Before Sun and Moon, and with its coming was war. The heavens collapsed and the earth was rent asunder. This was also the war that predated the Archon War and caused the eventual fall of the Seelie Kingdom and potentially even other civilizations. According to the book Before Sun and Moon, humanity theorized that the Second Throne was successfully defeated, and considering how the Flower of Paradise Lost supports this claim, it's most likely that Celestia was able to stop the invaders before anything permanent happened to Tevat. However, there is a fascinating quote that the goddess says, "And though the invaders brought war to my former kin, they also brought about illusions that could break through shackles to the land. This could be why Celestia deems outlanders as potential threats. They are exceptions. It's possible that whatever the second throne that came to Tevat brought was forbidden knowledge enough to counter whatever foundational principles exist in Tevat. One really good point of consideration is that the second throne would be considered as a descender. They aren't connected to the planet's constants. This means that they most likely have the means of severing the 3 concepts of fate, knowledge, and time from the people of Tivat, and removing them from the foundational principles of the world. Foundational principles that could include their inherent connection to the Irminsul, or maybe the constellations being entwined with their fates. Though, as the goddess puts it, it was only illusions, so the success of the Second Throne is potentially not even palpable or effective. By the way, the goddess saying invaders would put into contention the Fatui's claim of them only being 4, which means that Celestia has been strangely effective in doing something about them. It's possible that whatever happened to the other descenders happened to the Abyss sibling. That's why they're not recorded by the Fatui. But I won't go into detail about it here. If you're interested though, I already opened that topic somewhere else. The next sign gives us a deeper insight on Celestia's motivations. But the Master of the Heavens, consumed by fear for the rising tide of delusion and breakthrough, sent down the divine nails to mend the land, laying waste to the mortal realm. Heed my warnings. Seek not the Master of the Four Shades, and inquire not the mysteries of the sky and the abyss. Otherwise, as shown by the nail of retribution, certain calamity and sorrow shall follow. This is where it gets interesting. We finally get the reason for Selvindignir's collapse, the civilization of Dragonspine that is. Selvindignir and the Chasm are locations that have evident nails, but it's also possible that Surumi Island met the same fate considering that there are a lot of ruins that talk about wisdom, as well as heeding warning to the sky. Sumeru also has its own nail, as according to the Shadow of the Sand King, the first divine pillar descended from the skies, burying the tree and meadow under the flowing sands, which is why we have a desert in the first place in an otherwise land of Dendro. Regardless, Selvindignir was a civilization that had a close relationship to the divine prior to the fall of the nail. This city entombed in snow once had a proud, romantic name to call its own, just as the mountain itself was once lush and verdant in the ancient past. But after the nail that froze the skies over descended upon this mountain, their festive site where priests ascended to face the heavens can no longer hear its voice, nor will those priests ever return again. It's possible that Celestia feared mortal prosperity and saw it as a threat to their concept of eternity, almost similar to A's ideology for the Vision Hunt Decree. Mortal ambition begets the mind to question, and thus bringing forth mortal arrogation. We have seen that before in other civilizations of Tivat, in which they would soon become blinded by their pursuit for knowledge and began tampering with things that they shouldn't. They begin to fight against gods, thinking that they're stronger and wiser, otherworldly and forbidden knowledge that would be shared amongst the people, only to seep through like the plague. As such, this Master of the Heavens was paranoid, and ended any civilization that would get too close to divine knowledge. It's also important to follow up that even in present time, talking about Celestia is considered treason or blasphemy punishable by execution. For example, Orobashi was theorized by Enjo to have committed a blasphemy for allegedly reading the book before Sun and Moon. This is unconfirmed though, considering that he was killed during the Archon War by another god, but Enjo hints it as less so of a divine punishment and more so a fate sealed by the heavens. Number 2 is that the people of Enkanomiya were banished from the mainland of Tivat after they fled during the coming of the Second Throne. Number 3 is that if we look at the Archons, Zhongli was contracted not to talk about Celestia or what happened with the sibling. A is also hesitant to divulge more information. Venti is straight up avoidant of the situation and instead talks about the gardens of Celestia rather than Celestia itself. Number 4 is that the goddess of time Istaroth, or the goddess amongst the 4 shades that we know the most about, is currently missing. It is also said that the heavenly envoys, presumably the ones in the Prayers artifact set that helped humanity the first time, were punished. Why? No definitive answer. But it isn't to say that Celestia is completely in the wrong. We have seen what knowledge can do to people, as well as the potential effects that could happen to the human psyche. The legacy of the Scarlet King made this evident, in which the people were driven mad by the otherworldly revelations. Khaenri'ah is also a great example of knowledge begetting pride. The abyssal creations that first brought forth the Cataclysm were truly what destroyed Khaenri'ah the first time. The Archons and Celestia intervening was simply retribution for their foolishness. The Cataclysm in Khaenri'ah was not Celestia's fault. The Abyss monsters were the first ones to wreak havoc. But regardless of Celestia's intention, it is impossible to truly justify any of that when their next course of action is the obliteration of civilizations. But that's it for me today. To summarize, talking about the four shades as well as the past of Celestia is a one-way ticket to disappearing from the living world. Furthermore, Celestia is afraid of prosperity and advancement that may or may not lead to mortal arrogation, thus sending the Celestial Nails to quote-unquote mend the land. They also punish other Celestials that fall out of line and give forbidden knowledge to humanity, or have refused the oath of secrecy. So, my name is Aster, and thank you for chilling with me.